Welcome to RGBA, colorful tech news and reviews. This is episode 86. My name is Alexandre Valia-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tara Bénard. All right, let's start with some little follow-up from last week. We cut a discussion from the edit of the last episode regarding the little privacy icon because at first I thought that this thing would appear in the status bar of the iPhone and the iPad, so you can know when an app is sharing your private information. But it's actually not that. It's Apple who will be putting this icon on the start screen of a couple of applications, where these applications are basically sending some privacy or accessing privacy data. It's not the same thing as when the GPS icon appears because an app is sending your location to its servers. It's something that Apple is more transparent about starting from now, basically. So yeah, basically that's the little follow-up on this one.
I sent you one this week.
Yeah, that's why, because I was never able to retrieve one or trigger it. I tried a bunch of apps, like even Uber, thinking that Uber might send my personal data somewhere, but nothing was happening. So then you finally found a screen where there was this little icon, but it's just inside the screen, the startup screen of an app. It's not when something's happening in the background. So regarding the new iPad, we were wondering last week how the whole pairing process would work, and I was able to understand a bit more how these things work. If you remember, the crayon from Logitech has a button on it, and instead of pairing it by plugging it in the Lightning connector, it basically is using the location distance by Bluetooth, and that little button acts as let's pair myself with the closest iPad. So let's imagine a classroom where there's a bunch of iPads and a box full of crayons. Take a crayon, take an iPad, go to your desk. You just click the button on the crayon, and the iPad in front of you, which is the closest one by distance, will pair to the closest crayon, basically. So it's pretty smart. It's a way to not having to number pens and iPads and make sure that they don't get mixed up or repair, and then somebody has the wrong pen, but it force pair it again or whatever. No, nothing of that will happen in the classrooms. It's basically just take an iPad, take a crayon, press a button, and you're done. So it's pretty smart. And for a room with many devices, I think that's even smarter than the regular let's plug it in the Lightning port, because as useful as this feature is, it looks awful and it's super prone to breakage if you pull on the Apple Pencil while it's plugged in, and kids will probably do that running around. They're gonna hook their shirt on the pencil and it's gonna rip the connector apart, or break the crayon. So to alleviate this problem, Logitech has this little push button thing that's pretty smart.
Okay, I didn't realize this was it's a good idea. Finally, I was like, why didn't they put the stupid Lightning connector so you can just charge it directly in the iPad when it needs a 15-minute charge while the teacher is speaking? But now I know.
Yeah, it makes super sense when you understand the whole picture.
I guess it makes super sense once you have kids and you see how they use your iPad.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I never really, like, when they said that the pencil is down or something, it's just, later we'll fix it. And while they're not there, I just plug it in and remove it a few minutes later.
They don't even know there's a cap and a Lightning connector under there. You never showed them.
They probably know, but they don't try to tamper with it. So good for me and good for my devices. So yeah. All right, so the first news we have is you added to the show notes a little video about some Tesla car.
Right, so last week we talked about the Tesla that crashed in, I think it's in California, right?
Yeah.
And somebody posted a video on YouTube using a Tesla also, and he was showing what happens if you autopilot into that area. So if you let the car drive and you have to be attentive to the wheel, the autopilot stupid name feature.
Yeah.
And
the one you prefer?
Hey?
The one you like?
Yeah. So basically the car, it goes towards the barrier and it doesn't stop. He had to stop the car himself because or else he would have hit the barrier exactly like the accident.
Yeah, it's just a highway, regular highway. Then there's a little curve, and at the end of the curve, there's the road splits in two. So you have the exit on the right, and the highway continues to the left. So instead of keeping the lane and continuing on the highway or exiting the highway, it basically gears toward the middle where there's the curb, and usually they put like big containers of water or salt or whatever. I'm not salt, but sand. But in this case, it's quite small, and there's not much. There's only like the middle railings. So, and you see the car goes like slightly to the right until it's very, very, very in the middle, and then the guy just hit the brakes because the car would have hit the curb right there. So it's pretty awful because it's reproducible. So there's really something that the car thinks it's doing right, but it clearly is not.
That's why I like trains, because there's rails, and this can't really happen.
Yeah, but it's not really flexible, you know. So I added a second video to the show notes just for your pleasure. Is a bunch of autopilot crash compilations that the autopilot prevented the crash and not that autopilot crashed the car. So there's a bunch of examples. There isn't one where there's like a wild boar going straight across the highway, and then the Tesla car tries to change lane to skip the pig, and then had to stop because the pig was there, and it just like touched the pig a bit, so it almost fell, but it just continues to run. So yeah, there's a bunch of examples like that, like brake situations, people missing their exit and just cutting 3 lanes. And yeah, it's pretty smart the way it avoids all those accidents. And most of them in this compilation, you'll see that they were like, if it was only a human driving, you can be 100% sure that this would have caused an accident of some kind.
I'm
be it
sure
small
it's
or large.
It is safer. Like if you look at the numbers, it is like way not surfer. It's way safer, yeah. But it's just as soon as something happens with like, it's not a human, that it's like a machine that killed a human, forget about it. You're going to hear about it in news everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, I'm trying to find another example right now, but I don't have any. But oftentimes in life, some things are made so that it makes our life better until it doesn't, and it kills you. Like it's the whole extreme. Like you go from being a super simple, life is easier, life is great, to if it doesn't work, well, now you're dead. Like there's no in between.
Planes?
Yeah. Planes, yeah, example, yeah. It's easier to cross the ocean than boats, but if plane goes bobo, wee, no more. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that tends to happen with technology and stuff like that. So talking about the crashes, there's the Russian mail. They basically showed a demo of their new drone delivery service. So as Amazon is planning to do in the near future, they are working on having drones to deliver some packages. I don't know exactly the whole details. Is it for remote area? Is it for cities? Whatever. But they basically had a bunch of people gathering around with the press, showcasing their nice drone with a little package and a little poster attached to it. And it was kind of like the maiden flight of the first delivery using the drone. So it starts up. The drone spins its propeller, goes up in the air, flies around, and then you see the camera following the drone, and then the drone basically decided to go to a hard right, and directly into a brick wall. So that $20,000 drone is now exploded in pieces. And just as journalists tend to do when they are physically on a scene like that, they do some B-roll, and you can see the very last scene of that video is the guy filming the little poster get pushed by the wind away. So it's a pretty romantic. So yeah, the Russian mail needs to still work on their drone software, I guess. I don't know if it was an autopilot drone or if it was human control, but probably autopiloted. They need to work on that for sure.
When you said Russian mail, I thought like a male, like human mail.
Female. Yeah, no. Mail like in the email, not email, but yeah, not the E1.
Yeah, I know what you mean now.
Yeah, just like Hotmail was for those who were there like in the early days.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, well, I think it even came from that. Something like that. Anyways, but yeah.
Doesn't Amazon have a drone service like this?
Yeah, it's already built. Is it working? I think it's not on yet. If it's on, it's maybe once in a while just for testing purposes. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's actually there. Yeah, because you can put a little placemat on your lawn
as a target.
As a target, yeah, and that's where it's gonna drop the package.
Oh.
So yeah, it actually is live. Probably not every city. There's probably only a few cities. But yeah, you can do the Prime Air delivery that they call it. So you can buy, let's say, something that you need right away. Like, let's say you forgot to buy a second controller and your friend is coming over for the whole day and you need to play video games. So early in the
I
morning,
was
you
thinking of
order.
something a bit more essential than a second controller.
That's the most essential thing you can get, my friend. When you have a whole day of gaming plan and you only have one controller, that's the worst. So you order it super early in the morning and you airmail it to you. It should come in the next, I think it's 2 to 3 hours at most. So you should get that very quickly. Put a little mat there outside, and then the drone comes, drop the package, and goes away.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Especially if you live further and you don't have like a controller store close.
exactly. You
But
have
then they won't send drones to your house if you're too far. So I guess it's like for now, I guess they're only
Yeah.
like in city centers. And if you could just walk outside and go get a controller.
Yeah, but think about maybe Easter morning. Like you are basically
Right. Everything
off
is
from
closed.
work. Everything is closed, so it's the perfect service to use.
Or Christmas morning when you forgot to buy batteries for your remote control car.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Those are essential.
That's what I said. All right, so moving on to some Apple news. The first one, as we usually report, we have iFixit, who did a teardown of the iPad 6. I know it's not the official name. What is it, the official name? iPad 9.7 with pencil support, whatever. So yeah, iPad 6. Nothing super major there. Nothing we really learned from the teardown. It's basically like we had before, the iPad from previous generation with a better CPU and the pencil support. So there's nothing super special there. It's just interesting to see inside the devices as usual. So links in the show notes.
I like that on the picture of the teardown, they've done like crayon drawings like on the big white sheet of paper they photographed the stuff on, like they did in the event.
Oh yeah, true. I didn't see this. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So I'm really, really awaiting some Snapchat pictures from you. So hopefully you will be able to send that to me soon. And I remember when Craig Federighi demoed this feature from Snapchat was the AR Snapchat lenses. So you basically have some kind of paint-looking thing on your face. It really uses the depth information from the camera to place way more than just like a little bunny ears and stuff like that. But it's really using your face surface as, let's say, the canvas to paint on this little mask. So this is supposed to be released very soon, I think. Do we have a date?
It's on now.
Oh, it's on now.
Yeah.
But what are you waiting for? Send it to me. I want to see your face like that.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, all right.
So this is only for iPhone 10?
Yeah.
Is it, what was the test that we used to do with Animoji? We'd hide the sensors and just leave the camera
Why?
to see if they're using actually the depth sensor, the depth sensors.
Yeah, no, they are using it for sure. Because I don't know how they could do it anyways.
They used to do it with the bunny ears and everything anyways. You didn't need the depth sensor.
No, but it was only using like almost 2D information. They were strategically placing those things on your face by using the information of the photos or the video where your facial attributes were basically coordinates X, Y's, and they were putting it there. We're not really using the whole depth thing. So they were trying to do a bit of 3D modeling, but nothing as intense as the depth sensor.
Now I have like my thumb on all the sensors, and the only thing I'm not hiding is the camera, and it still works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Oh man, there's a couple of really, really intense ones.
Well, I'm waiting to see that. So make sure to send me a couple. We'll put them in the show notes for people to see. So do something that's not PG-13. All right, so let's move on to the next news. This one is quite interesting. If you know, NASA is working with SpaceX for a bunch of rocket projects, so delivering goods to the space station, putting satellites into orbit. But at the same time, there's also Boeing, who's been working on with a special project of having manned mission to space. and they were planning to do a test flight soon. But it kind of happened that that test flight will not include only 2 humans, but will include maybe a third one, and can go from, instead of being a couple of days in space, to be a couple of months, like from 2 weeks to 6 months. And so basically the first test will not be a first test anymore. It might be a full mission. So what happened is NASA updated its contract with Boeing so that Boeing could become a full-fledged partner, basically, with NASA. So I know that Russia doesn't have any more Soyuz seats to offer. So it kind of pushes the United States and NASA to do something about that and try to come up with their own shuttles and stuff like that. So they are kind of in the middle of that, and that's going to be pretty interesting. So I don't know what kind of missions could take 6 months, but I'm hoping for a bunch more missions to space, because the space race that was once so great became almost nothing, and it still is something that I'm very interesting to see. No matter what the experiment is, no matter what the purpose is, for me, it's always interesting to see what goes up into space. So hopefully we'll hear more about what this future mission will be. But I'm pretty hopeful that we can see something very soon.
Yeah, I didn't even know Boeing was like in the space race, if you want. I thought it was only the SpaceX and Jeff Bezos, whatever he calls it. I always forget what's it called.
Yeah, blue something.
Blue sky? Blue moon.
Yeah, maybe.
Blue horizon.
Yeah, blue
shuttles.
Blue horizon, yeah, exactly. Blue horizon, I think.
Okay.
Whatever. Blue something, yeah. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. The more players are there, the more opportunities there are to use. All right, so moving on to this week's PSA. So if you are using Twitter, you know that there are chances that you're not using the official Twitter app. So you might be using Tweetbug, Twitterrific, or a bunch of other apps on other platforms. But these are dependent on the Twitter API. And the Twitter API is not something that Twitter really takes care of. As one might say, the Twitter API is a product in our product line. So nothing really happens there. At the same time, Twitter itself, the API, the app, has new features that they don't release as API, so third party cannot use those. So what happens? Well, it seems that the next set of feature, which is basically a new API for streaming tweets live or for notifications, is basically not available for third party. It's in beta right now, but not for third party. So, and it comes out, I think, in June. So that leaves us about 2 months and a half. And there's still nothing on the pipeline for developers. So what will happen? Basically, your app will still continue to work, but you will need to do pull to refresh to get new tweets or new responses or new replies or whatever. And also, you will have a maximum of 35 items that you can assign notification to. So for example, 35 users. So if your best friends on Twitter send you a tweet, you would need to set them as your favorites or whatever, and that these will work for notification. But if somebody you don't know sends you a tweet, you won't see it until you refresh manually your reply tabs. So it becomes like a whole problem, because one of the most engaging feature of Twitter is having notifications. So without this, of course, the usage will go down. If the usage go down, then Twitter will say, hey, who cares about third-party clients? Like, they don't get used. Look at the stats. We have like 90% less engagement than before. So they will probably kill the API. So people are starting to come together. So there's a website in the links, in the show notes. It's called Apps of a Feather. And it basically explains the problems. It's a website made by Twitter clients, Talent, Tweetbot, Tweetings, and Twitterrific, going like hand in hand to try to pressure Twitter to change its behavior. And the good thing is this came out yesterday, I think.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, so, and we already have an official reply from Twitter saying that they are putting on hold this deployment, and they will leave sufficient time for people to adapt. So it's still not clear if they're going to release like the APIs we need to have those features in the third-party clients, or if they're just pushing it back and eventually releasing it silently so that nobody really notice. So, but yeah, it's not one, but there's at least some movement. So we'll have to see in the coming weeks and months how this happens. They say they're going to leave 90 days to adapt, but 90 days for whom? For the one that were already in the beta, or for those that were not able to join the beta, they will be able to join. So it's still very unclear.
So what did you ever use the Twitter official app thing?
I tried a couple times, but never really liked it. I find it too heavy. Like the whole interaction model on the official app for me it's too much. It's I don't know, it feels sluggish. It feels like there's too much happening and not enough information. I'm mostly used to a very minimalistic look like Tweetbot or Twitterific, and these were always like designed in a way that it was light to your eye and always super fast. So for me, going back to the official Twitter app makes no sense.
Okay, because I'm gonna try it now because I haven't in a super long while. But the main things I think that's missing is, for me personally, is the timeline sync between like the Mac and iPad and iPhone, and also I think it doesn't stick. Like my timeline won't stay at the exact same spot that I left it last time, right? Like Instagram, it's always at the top.
Yeah, it's gonna move your
right. That's not gonna
your pointer.
work.
Yeah. Well, they want you to see something that you missed since last time you went on. So you'll be offered a list of interesting tweets from your timeline at the top. So it messes your timeline just like Instagram does.
So I think if that happens, I might even stop using it like I did with Instagram, because it just doesn't make no sense for me to see tweets from 2 days ago and then seeing a tweet from 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, totally understand. I really hope for these guys, for those third-party clients, that this gets resolved and Twitter actually puts out real effort into their API, because at first they were like the best class citizen, making an API for everyone that was working super nice, and all the features were there, and every couple months there were new features, and they were working on adding them at the same time to the API. And that was great. But since a couple of years where they're trying really to make more money and try to be relevant in terms of revenues and profits, they really tend to go towards a model where they mess up your timeline on the official Twitter app and offer you whatever they think that should be more interesting. And I think there's also ads on there. So yeah, for me, it's a problem. If they really want this to work, they should find a way to also integrate ads into third-party clients, but only if they are putting real effort into the API. And as soon as there's a new feature in the official apps, there should be a new feature also for the third-party apps. So, because right now what the problem is that they can only monetize the official Twitter app. They can't monetize third-party. So for them, there's no financial incentives. So find a way to make some financial incentives, or maybe ask people, do you want to pay? Like, if I would be glad to pay like $15 a year to not see a single ad on Instagram. And I'm sure that's going to give them more revenue than just showing me crappy ads that don't really work because I've never clicked on those. So there's a way to change that. They must work on that.
Okay. It makes no sense, the Twitter app for me. I have it open now. Tweets from 20 hours ago, tweets from 41 minutes ago.
Cool. It lasted 5 minutes.
And the pictures are huge too. That's one thing I always activate in Tweetbot that I forget about when I see other people on Twitter, is that I use the small pictures there.
Okay.
I don't like the big ones.
I'm medium.
Okay, so I'm hoping that they're going to do something to let the apps like survive.
Yeah, they really must put effort in there, and they won't do it until they have a financial incentive. So they have to come up with a plan first to really find a way to monetize the third-party clients. I know nobody wants ads for sure, but the service is free. So either you go the app.net way and you charge people a fixed amount of money per year, or you find a way to push ads into the API so that people on the other side would get some ads. There's not more solutions than that. It's like these are like the only two solutions you can really have. or else you drop third-party support completely and then you kill your platform.
Especially since you don't offer a Mac app.
Yeah, also doesn't really help.
But I guess they want people to use the browser so they can see ads.
Yeah, well, they had one. They had like what did they have? Was it Windows app or something?
Oh, they had a
But they
Mac app.
basically they had a Mac app, yeah, so they killed it, and now they say go to the web. That's the full experience. Well, it's not always the best.
But I'm guessing, why can't they just like push ads in the feed for third party?
Well, they can. It's just that they never did. The only thing is that since you're not on the web, they don't have all the trackers in place to track you and know exactly who you are and
Tyler
to be able to
Menard.
push you. Yeah, I know you are Tyler Menard, but they don't know what's your whole history of browsing and your whole history of purchases from
Right.
Amazon and everything, so they cannot give you the appropriate ads. That's why they don't do it like that.
Just look at who I follow and give me stuff like that.
Yes, that could be also interesting, but it's a whole different way of looking at your what do they call that? Your not personal data, but your personal
Persona.
profile. Yeah, your persona, your personal profile that really represents what you are in terms of a ad clicker. So,
But I won't.
yeah,
I won't tap your ad either way. So just show
Well-
whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can be super smart and show you ads that really look like tweets. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to kill your platform too.
Yeah.
Hide ads and quit tweets. Yeah, that's gonna be the best. When you click a picture to see it, you have an ad in between. Huh?
Oh, that
should
would
be
be
nice,
nice.
too.
Like, just watch this 10-second ad to see a picture.
Exactly.
Maybe then I
That you're
switch
gonna-
on to large, so I don't have to tap them to look at them.
Exactly. All right, so let's go back to more serious news now. So Apple made some acquisition. Well, acquisition, wrong word. Let me rephrase that. So Apple made a hire.
Yeah. So they hired. How do we say this name? I don't want to butcher it.
Oh, jeez. John Gianandrea? No, Gianandrea?
Jana.
John G.
John G.
So,
Yeah.
John G.
Yeah, because there's not enough John G's.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget. On Connected, Federico said it. He's Italian. He said he pronounced it in Italian, but I tried to say, okay, this is how we have to say it, but I already forgot.
Yeah, me too.
So anyways, he was head of AI at Google, and now he's becoming head of AI at Apple. So
Directly reporting to Tim Cook.
yeah, so SVP level, I guess, or like Phil Schiller, like Federici, like Eddie Q and all that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's SVP or if it's only VP, but like there's no SVPs for this division.
Right.
That could also be the case. But anyways, if he's reporting to Tim Cook, it's a very important position.
Right, and it's like new position. Like Siri always used to be under, I think, Q, and then Federici, and then Schiller. So he, like, the Siri position or the AI position has been taken up a notch, and it reports directly to Tim Cook. So it shows like the commitment to this, and they're gonna try to fix it, or I guess make it better. And also, arguably, the best company in AI right now is Google, and they just poached like the lead of that department. So I guess this is like super, super good news.
Yeah, they really need to work on Siri because every time there's a new device, people are always saying that the hardware is amazing, but Siri is the main problem. And when you have a product like the HomePod, which is strictly Siri based, and you have the problems that we face every time we use it, it doesn't make sense. It's almost a reason to mock the device, and it's almost a reason for many people not to buy the device. So when you're at this level, you're so low that you really need to kick the can and really, really put some effort into that technology and make it work better. Because when it came out, Siri, it was amazing. It was out of this world, but it barely changed over the years. Like, they added a couple of intents. They probably structured it in a way that it was more easy to integrate into third-party apps, but like the technology itself, the understanding itself, the smarts of Siri, they did not evolve too much. The voice change, okay, that's good. So whenever Siri talks to you now, if you do the same request over and over, you can hear that the intonations and the way that she pronounces the words is slightly different. So it's more human-like, but that's just like what do you call that? Icing on a cake. Like, it's not the most important thing. The thing that is the most important is the cake itself, and it's the way that Siri understands you. And if this gentleman can come in and really shake the company and get some serious financial backing and efforts behind Siri, maybe in a year or two we could see something very different. Like the jump from current Siri to future Siri might be huge, and that's what I'm really hoping.
Also, you're talking about Siri and the HomePod. I have like these HomePod stats that I'm keeping. Every morning when I come down, I ask the HomePod to play Subnet, the new like daily podcast by Relay FM and Stephen Hackett. So it's just like 2 minutes, and it gives you like the news you want to know or something like that. I forget the tagline. Anyways, it's really good. And before I lent it to you, it stopped working for like the last 2 days. Instead of playing Subnet, I'd play Deep Sunset something, and I just always cancel it right away. When you gave it back to me, I had to reset it to work with me, and then it worked fine for a couple days. And now on Thursday, again, it started giving me the Deep Sunset podcast. So it's like every morning at 7:20, I ask for this specific podcast. And when you give me this other podcast, I cancel you like right away. Like, hey, Siri, stop. Like, just stop. I don't even want to hear it. You try to present me this podcast, and I've never listened to it. So maybe just scrap it. And when I let you play Subnet every morning, like, remember, machine learn that this is a show that I like and that I listen to every morning. So continue giving it to me. I don't understand why it keeps giving me this stupid Deep Sunset podcast. I'm sure it's really, really good, but it's not what I want to listen when I'm packing my lunch in the morning.
This comes down to you need to train the algorithm, and to be able to train anything with machine learning, you need some kind of positive reinforcement and some negative reinforcement. In this case of Siri today, we don't have any negative reinforcements. Positive is its own by default. So whatever request you make, you get an answer back. If she's able to help you, then it's a positive for her. If she's not able to help you and understand your request, it might go into some bin somewhere where they need to work on this and come up with a way to understand you. But that's all we have. We really need some kind of keywords like no, Siri, or wrong thing, or like just a set of keywords that can tell the algorithm that, yes, you were successfully able to retrieve me something, but that is not what I wanted. And until we have that kind of feature, it's very hard for the AI team to understand real negatives from false negatives. And I think that this is one feature that we should have with all the AIs, well, all the voice assistants we have on the market, is a way to be very, very straightforward when there's something that did not work and when there's something that we really want to change. And in this case, it's very simple. For you, it's easy because it's every day, same time, every day the same query, and like every couple of days it doesn't work. So for you, it's easy, but for the whole, let's say the whole set of requests that Siri does every day, maybe there's not a feature that watches for those patterns. So until we have smart patterns of people requesting the same thing over and over, we should have a way to say, hey, what you did was wrong. Fix this. And that would send your query and the response that it gave to some bin where it says, here's a query and here's a wrong response. And after having a couple of them, maybe if you do it every day, and every day you give it like, it's wrong, and it's always the same podcast, well, that's easy to fix. Like after 3 wrongs, you should never propose this podcast. So what's the second one on the list that Siri wanted to find? And maybe it's the right one. So that's one way I would fix this. All right, moving on to a news we have from TechCrunch. So Matthew Penzerino was able to attend a roundtable once again at Apple headquarters. Last year, it was to discuss the situation with the Pro hardware. So they announced that a Mac Pro will be coming next year. They announced an iMac Pro, and this year we got the iMac Pro, and still no Mac Pro. Everybody's hoping for before end of the year, and we're hoping to see a brand new, like tower kind of looking Mac Pro. But this is not what's going to be happening. It's going to be a 2019 product. So the reason behind this is that Apple changed the way that they're approaching their understanding of how people use their hardware. So instead of just making a pro computer like they normally do, this time around, they defined a pro workflow team where their mission is to follow actual people using their hardware in their actual job to understand exactly what's happening. So they cannot send people around the world to just have a notepad and look at people working and take notes. So they basically have to get those professional down to Apple's offices and work on specific hardware devices and apps that are probably modified in some fashion to understand, like, have metrics on how they use the apps. So like what action takes what, how long to do, and what action has been done like 5 times in a row because it doesn't always work. So there's a bunch of metrics probably saved from those apps. So that's what they basically do. They even hired professionals to as contractuals or consultant to work on their own product, but inside Apple's headquarters. So they have probably little offices with all those iMac Pros and different kind of Apple computers, and they bring in their gear. So whatever they need to do their photo shoots or their video shoots and everything, and they go back to their offices and they work on Final Cut Pro, they work on Logic, and those machines are basically following up exactly what's happening with those professionals and how they are working. And from that, they are understanding problems. For example, there was one problem where a specific panel was opened, but it always took like 5 to 10 seconds to open. And they understood that this was a problem, and they pinpointed the problem to be a driver issue. They fixed it, and now it's instantaneous. And that thing was used 100 times per day by this professional. So you just saved him maybe 500 to 600 seconds. So it's also great because those little things that are slow, that are bugging professionals, are the kind of thing that gets added to the rest of those things that are irritating. And over time, it gets on your nerves. So that's how they approach the problem. That's why they need more time. They really want to work with different types of professionals in different fields. And that's why we don't have any Mac Pro for now. So for the future plans, I haven't read really the last part of the article. I know they're going to change the communication. So they could either like don't say nothing, or just have like whisper campaigns or background commentary where developers and professionals like make a rumor or something or whatever, but they chose to do it differently and they really want to be more transparent. So hopefully we're going to hear more about what's coming up at WWDC. Maybe not a physical Mac Pro being displayed, but they're probably going to have a little video of how they work with those pro workflow guys and how they're going to address the problems, both hardware and software, to make a pro platform that merits the word pro.
It's kind of funny that this is like exactly a year to the day from the roundtable thing last year, right?
Yeah. It's it's peculiar, but I think it makes sense also.
Right. I don't think it's a coincidence.
No. They really want to like give an update. So it's part of that communication thing. Like Apple is one of the most secretive company for reasons, and that they try to communicate. It's always a balance to be strike that is not too much, but just enough. And I think that they're trying to go the right way now. Instead of being totally mute and say nothing, they're trying to communicate better.
I don't know if you remember, but last year, they never said it would be released, the Mac Pro, in 2018. So I guess this is just normal, if you want. It's like not a surprise. We shouldn't say it's a surprise. They only said the iMac Pro was coming. In the meantime, in 2018 or even 17, it came like at the absolute last minute, and that was like it's like a band-aid on our wound before like stitching us up and giving us a real Mac Pro. So, and then we get this whole story of they're trying to make it more tailored for professionals and all that, and it just makes me scared because I think they're going to come out with another super black box that you won't be able to upgrade. It's just going to be one thing that you buy in several configurations. And what we really want and what pros really want is just take the Mac Pro there, paint it in black like you did for the accessories of the iMac Pro. So just give us the same cheese grater, put new guts in it, and that's it, and make it upgradable, not this stupid tailored thing. Like, I understand for iPhones it has to be tailored to the software and everything, but this is a computer that people use to work with software that changes all the time. Don't try to tailor it for your Final Cut. What happens if I want to use Premiere or something? So just give me like the best computer I can buy right now off the shelf, and everybody's going to be happy. Nobody's going to be complaining.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying, and I think you're right. If Apple was getting ready to make something that's a cheese grater, that's super modular, it wouldn't take more time than it already passed to do this. I'm scared because they also push a lot of the eGPU in that little sit down, and I'm afraid that their solutions for different fields and different requirements will be some USB 3, Thunderbolt 3 powered external device. So, okay, here's your, like you said, your little garbage can, and you have 6 USB 3 Thunderbolt 3 ports in the back. Here you do some graphics. Here's an eGPU. You do some audio. Here's an eCPU. You're doing I don't know, like you're a musician. So here's an MIDI extension, whatever. So like, I'm afraid that the flexibility will come from outside and not from inside. So we'll still get this black box, like you said, that there's nothing that we can change, and everything has to happen on the outside part. Like, I understand that eGPUs, if they work as well as they're intended to, it's going to be amazing for many people, but that's not going to fix everyone. But what's going to fix everyone's problem is to have a computer that is modular, which you can change the storage. Because if you need, I don't know, like 20 terabytes in your computer, you want this to be hooked onto your motherboard because you need super fast access. Well, okay, here's a computer with 5 or 6 bays where you can add, I don't know, like 5 to 10 SSDs, and there you have it. You have your 20 terabytes. But I don't think that's what we're going to have. I'm afraid that once again they'll try to push some cutesy little computer, and everything will be outside. Like, if you want something, go see this third party to get some hardware, and go see this third party to get some something like eGPUs, eCPUs, interfaces of all kinds. And we've seen that in the past. I don't know if you remember in the 2007 days, kind of, there was this, what is it called? PCM-CIA? That's like a external format for cards. So you basically had I don't know, like a 10 centimeters by 3 centimeters card that would fit into your MacBook Pro. And on the outside, you would have different ports. So, for example, in the past, I used one from Sony, who was a FireWire 800 port. So I was able to add this port, which was missing from a computer. I was able to add a USB 3 eventually to a computer that only had USB 2s. So the PCM-CIA cards would be hooked onto the motherboard, and they would have a direct data line to the board, and that's why you were able to get some new ports that the computer didn't have. So this was a solution, but it was never a good solution because, first of all, you add some bulk to your computer, and in this case, it was a laptop, so it was awful. Also, not all PCM-CIA cards were equals. Some of them were crappy, some of them were better. None of them were great, and I'm afraid that if we go to this route, that we have some eGPUs and something, that some of them will be good, but most of them will be crappy, and that's not a way to set a machine for a consumer, a professional consumer, because we require something that is super strong, super sturdy, and super steady. And I'm afraid that the days of these requirements are now past, and Apple tries to push the work outside, and once again give us a cutesy little computer, and I don't like that.
They did this now because they didn't want to break the news at WWDC, because it would have been all everybody would have talked about, and it would have taken the shine off. Look at this new iOS 12 or whatever. So it's all strategy or PR.
Yeah. If you remember, every time we had negative news, it was always a roundtable, and not even a press release anymore, or like these 2 or 3 journalists were told something, and then they all report on the same information, but never in an event itself. So like you said, they keep the positive stuff for the events, they keep the positive but not groundbreaking stuff for press release, and every time it's negatives, it's either a roundtable or it's just a a control leak or something like that. So,
And last year's roundtable was, they said that they realized with the Mac Pro that they painted themselves in a thermal corner or something like that. And they realized that in 2015, I think.
yeah.
And now this new computer is going to come out in 2019, so it takes 4 years to redesign a Mac Pro. Like, it's been a while.
Yeah, that's why I think it's not a modular redesign like they could easily do in under a year. I think it's because they want to put everything on Thunderbolt 3 and externalize every component. And if there's a thermal corner now, it's not their problem anymore. It's the eGPU guys who's going to have a thermal problem, not them.
Yeah, that's what I'm really, really scared of. It's going to be this stupid black box that nobody's going to want and nobody's going to buy. And they're going to try to sell like the sweet solution, like, oh, look, just plug this all by USB-C that's not really supported. And you don't know if it's Thunderbolt 2 or Thunderbolt 3 or USB 1 or whatever. And I'm not like super excited about this news.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not hopeful that this is going to be the solutions we were all hoping for.
And also, I was kind of hoping for the Mac Pro to come out this summer at WWDC or something, and because they're supposed to announce alongside like a new Pro display, like, or just a new Apple display. It doesn't even have to be Pro. Just whatever you want to call it. Just make it an Apple display that doesn't look like the LG one that they offer now.
Yeah, and yeah, because they could come up with a display this year, even though there's no Pro computer. But I'm thinking that they're gonna push it, because now they say, if you want a Pro computer, here's the iMac Pro. You already have a display in there. So for me, it's not really a solution. I would prefer some Apple display of some kind that is thinner, faster, better looking, 5K and everything, and does not cost an arm and a leg and have isolation problems with like Wi-Fi networks like LG had. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I'm not hopeful at the moment. I really hope to be wrong and Apple comes up with a modular Mac Pro. But the more and more we wait, the less and less chances we have to we will get that computer basically.
And also talking about the screen, like the LG is always on special now, so there's like big deals to be had for that screen right now. So maybe it's going out of production or something, but even then.
Right. Also, we saw a bunch of them pop up on mass drop. So there was a drop of a limited number of displays, and we were thinking that according to the price and the timing, these were probably the ones that were exchanged
and
by
refurbished.
Apple. And refurbished, yeah, with a new isolation for the Wi-Fi.
They put foil.
Disruption. Yeah, they put foil around the cables, but now they're reselling them. So yeah, like you said, but that's the problem. If there's no display at all, there's no 5K display at all, like what's the solution from Apple? Will they start to sell like those LG ones that are LG branded but not LG co-designed with Apple? I don't know. It's I really hope for a display at WWDC. I really hope for a good story of how they're going to approach this, and maybe not a final design, but just words on, is it going to be like a trash can design thing, or is it going to be a modular cheese grater thing? So we need something.
I love that we have like these other names for the computers. Like, is it going to be a trash can or is it going to be a cheese grater? And everybody understands. But if you tell that to anybody else besides like this Mac bubble we're in or Apple bubble, they're like, what do you mean cheese grater? Cheese grater is super small. And we're like, no, cheese grater is like the big one, is the good one. The trash can is the small one. Come on, man, follow.
Yeah, I really hope we have a third name for the new one, because that would be fun to have the cheese grater to trash can and then evolving into something else.
Yeah, the huge black box.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of Windows PC right now. There's a couple companies, I don't have the name by heart, but they make some custom-made case with cooling liquids and everything and LED lights, and it's pretty flashy. It's not the kind of thing I like to use, but they still are pushing the envelope on that realm for gamers and for person that needs really good performance. So they are always modular. There's always like a bunch of options you can add, and I'm not even talking about the colors and the lightings and everything, but just the components you can choose. They're pretty amazing, And these go from like $2,000 up to like $20,000. So that's the kind of thing I want to see from Apple, like a computer, a Mac Pro that is a base machine of maybe $2,000 with good hardware, not many features, not many like options, but then you can start to add. So if you're like this Logic Pro editor, then you can add those options. If you're Final Cut Pro editor and you need an amazing amount of storage, then here's a few options for you. And depending on your professional realm, if you want, you have a bunch of options you can choose directly from Apple inside the case. That's my dream, but I'm not sure. All right, so let's move on to Gadget and Review Corner. I already reviewed the HomePod on the podcast itself, but I finally posted my video review and my written reviews. So links are in the show notes if you want to read or see my face discussing the HomePod and the problems I have with it and the good things it can still do. So I think I was able to strike a balance between here's what's good and here's what's bad and here's what needs to be fixed. But yeah, links are in the show notes.
And then my favorite corner.
Oh yeah, I skipped this one. Sorry. I skipped the rumors corner.
Yeah. So Bloomberg, Mark Gurman, he released an article this week saying that Apple plans to use its own chips in Macs from 2020. So like replacing Intel. I'm guessing they're going to be like the same thing as they do with the iPhones and the iPads, like the A line of chips, but now in Macs. So I don't know if this applies to like the new Mac Pro, and maybe that's why it's delayed because they want to ship it with their new chips or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. Maybe just for laptops, they can ship like super efficient. I keep saying ship and chips, and I'm all confused. So maybe they can have a laptop with this new chip, and it would be like super battery efficient, since AMD usually and all those architectures are a lot more battery efficient than Intel.
Yeah, I think they'll start with something smaller because they already have iPads that are more powerful than those small laptops that they currently sell. So it just makes sense to evolve that A line into a, I don't know what you want to call it, like an M line for mobile computers or whatever, with just a little bit more power to be able to surpass whatever they're doing on the computer sides. And also, you'll get amazing battery life because these will probably be the first laptops that are going to cross over the threshold of 20 hours of use time, and that would be amazing. Just think about the current MacBook or even the MacBook Air, which is maybe as powerful as half an iPad right now. So you could get something pretty amazing. The Mac Pro, not too sure because these would need to be way more powerful. There's going to be a lot less power constraint. So I don't know if the architecture that Apple has for the A series is scalable to this point as of now. But I'm pretty sure we can see maybe MacBook Airs or MacBook redesign, and probably the 13-inch MacBook Pro. They could also fit in that because it's a dual core chip, so they can easily do that. Not sure about the 15-inch with a quad core, so we'll have to see. But I think that the key to this change will be the Marzipan project, because if you change architecture from x86 to ARM, then you need to, of course, recompile your whole operating system, and all the apps that you were using before will need to be recompiled. So if there's a way for them to bring at the same time all of the nice things from iOS to macOS and have it as a first-class citizen, that could alleviate a lot of the problems we have right now. We had when they did the last change. So a bunch of apps were not compatible. There was like a in-between period where you had Rosetta, who was doing the translation of the instruction live, but all of those apps were super slow. So hopefully now, if Apple does this, if you remember the days of PowerPC, they were capped in terms of performance, and the Intel's chips were so much powerful that even with Rosetta, it was able to give you a good experience because it was such a big gap in between those two. So I'm hoping that if Apple does the same thing again, the ARM processor will be so much powerful that that gap will also allow them to have some kind of Rosetta technology in between for a while. And if you can alleviate that problem of performance, or some of those apps will not work, and you can bring in like a couple thousand apps from iOS that will work on Mac, I think that would be perfect scenarios for a new transition. Yeah, so basically we're hoping for news at WWDC of Marzipan project, maybe some little tidbit, maybe not an official statement that they're going to move to ARM chips, but maybe a little tidbit that will tell us that this is almost a certainty. So I think this WWDC will be very interesting. I'm looking forward to see all the news that come out of this conference. But yeah.
The same kind of hint that they gave us with the new screen size. Like, you should really use auto layout. Like, really, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, exactly. This really meant that in the coming future, screens will be of all sizes, and you don't need to custom make like for 2 or 3 resolutions. You have to use that auto layout because there will be way too many resolutions to just handle them all. All right, that's it for episode 86. You can find the show notes at rgba.fm/86. You find us on Twitter at _RGBAfm. I am on Twitter at Valia, VALLIERES.
And I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.